Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group, the SAMOSA Act passes the House, and the Senate introduces a bipartisan national quantum initiative reauthorization. It's Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's dig into today's top headlines. Legislation to improve federal agency oversight and management of software purchases passed the House on Wednesday. Keeping top IT and software trade groups is hopes alive that the bill will get through the Senate and become law before this congressional term is up. The Strengthening Agency Management and Oversight of Software Assets Act, better known as the SAMOSA Act, was introduced by Representative Matt Cartwright last year and co-sponsored by a bipartisan group of 20 House lawmakers. Calling the rooting out of waste, fraud, and abuse a signal mission of the House Oversight Committee, Cartwright said the bill would ensure that federal agencies are required to conduct a, quote, comprehensive assessment of their current software assets and restructure their operations to reduce unnecessary costs. The SAMOSA Act, which is the successor to Cartwright's 2016 Megabyte Act, would charge agency chief information officers with conducting software assessments and submitting those findings to the General Services Administration, the Office of Management and Budget, and the Government Accountability Office, which has shown particular interest on the topic of duplicative licenses. From there, plans would be developed to better manage the procurement of software and eliminate deficiencies and other bad acquisition practices. The legislation is backed by the Coalition for Fair Software Licensing, the Alliance for Digital Innovation, the Computer and Communications Industry Association, NetChoice, and the Software Information and Industry Association, all of which signed a letter in August urging Senate and House leadership to pass the SAMOSA Act before the end of the year. In other news from Capitol Hill, a bipartisan group of senators introduced legislation to reauthorize and refocus the National Quantum Initiative after certain research and development activities in its initial 5-year run lapsed in September. The National Quantum Initiative Reauthorization Act would authorize $2.7 billion for quantum R&D at federal agencies for the next 5 years and shift the initiative's focus from basic research to practical applications. It would also expand the initiative to include agencies like the National Institutes of Health, the State Department, and the Small Business Administration, according to a news release. Senator Maria Cantwell, the lead sponsor of the bill and chair of the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, said in the release that, quote, the National Quantum Initiative Reauthorization Act strengthens America's competitive edge through critical R&D investments. By fostering public-private collaboration, we will accelerate quantum innovation, create high-skilled jobs, and pioneer discoveries that benefit generations to come. Cantwell's co-sponsors are Senators Ted Young, Dick Durbin, and Steve Daines. The introduction comes roughly a year after a bipartisan House bill of the same name unanimously advanced out of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. That legislation, which is sponsored by Science Committee Chairman Frank Lucas and Ranking Member Zoe Lofgren, has stalled ever since the committee vote. The National Quantum Initiative began in 2018 to coordinate R&D in that space and bolster U.S. national security. While some R&D activities expired in September 2023, a news release said the authorization for the entire initiative doesn't expire until December 21st of 2029. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back tomorrow with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.